Hi, I'm Anthony from Sydney Backyard Veggies. Tomato season's finally started in my patch. I had just started harvesting my first tomatoes last week, but now the proper glut is starting to come through, and I'm really looking forward to start making a lot more tomato sauces. I've run out of passata from last season in my kitchen, and there's an order in for additional sauces to be made. But I'm over at my main planting of tomatoes here. This is the crop is called Thunder. The variety is called Thunder. I planted out at the last week of August, and you can just see across the plants I'm starting to get a lot of ripening fruit. They were just starting to blush last week, and I've just noticed that some of them had blushed. Picked my first few, but I need to harvest a lot more now. They really are starting to color a lot. I have to quickly harvest these. I'm actually anxious now that they've actually let them redden up a bit, that they are going to get attacked by birds and potentially rats. So we're going to be harvesting a lot of this fruit and take them inside to continue ripening. So harvesting these tomatoes, and I'm not harvesting them as though they're completely yellow red. I do harvest them as soon as they start blushing, and quite clean at the moment. And I like this variety. This variety is Thunder. I like this variety because it ripens early. I get a lot of fruit flies, so I want to get the crop off early before the fruit flies turn up. And so far so good. They've been quite clean, which I'm really happy with. These tomatoes are actually still quite not ripe enough yet to be made out of sauces. So when I take these inside, I'm going to give them a little bit of a wash. And I'll be sending them in trays in the toy room, which is a nice warm north facing room, and they should ripen over the week and get really deep red. Now these aren't perfect for saucing, they're very watery, but I like this tomato because it's quite prolific, and because it just produces really early, which is really key for what I'm trying to do in my patch, get around those fruit flies. And just while I'm harvesting these tomatoes, I can find some evidence of damage from caterpillars. And if you're not careful with your sprays, they will decimate your crop pretty quickly. Now I lost only one fruit here, but I have been spraying once a week, and I might amp that up to twice a week just to stay on top of these caterpillars. Just finished my tomato harvest. Got a couple, got 2 or 3 kilos of tomatoes here, which is great. Various shades of red, but those should all ripen up for this time next week, and I'll look at making these into passatas next week. Now that I've started harvesting tomatoes, it's time for me to add the second round of fertilizer. And again, it's just a handful of chicken manure pellets against the base of each of the plants, and some sulfate of potash as well, and a little bit to each of the base of the plants should be plenty. Now with these tomatoes, I'm expecting to harvest the bulk of the crop between now and mid-December, and by that time the plants will be mostly spent. But I'm thinking, because the plants look actually quite nice, they are still flowering a fair bit, no sign of disease, that I'm actually going to be netting this crop for fruit flies. Now the reason why I pull out my tomatoes in December is because of fruit flies. I just find it too hard to net, but I do have a big net 6 meters long that I should be able to drape over this, and I'm going to hopefully try to see if I can extend these plants productivity for another month or so to mid-January, and then I'll pull them out. Moving on from the tomatoes, and the next thing I'm going to be harvesting is the cucumbers. Now my cucumber crop has been a bit disappointing this season, mostly because I believe it's the new varieties I'm trying to grow. I have been spoilt when I grew greenhouse varieties like Craig or Cassib, because they actually do produce only female flowers and are very productive. These varieties here are okay, but they're not your true greenhouse varieties in the sense that they do produce both male and female flowers, so only get half the production. So this is my cucumber crop, and if you remember earlier in the piece, I planted out 2 separate rows. One row was green dragon, which is the burpless variety, and the other variety was mugwai. Now it turns out I had actually planted a third variety in here for some reason. I may have mischecked the seeds, and I think I planted another variety, which is a Lebanese cucumber variety called Mariana. It somehow made it into this, so I've got 3 different styles of cucumbers. So just working through the crop and just working the third furrow, and that's the green dragon, the nice burpless style cucumbers. A bit spiky, but that's not a problem. You just brush your hand over it and those spikes fall off pretty quickly. Working through the rows, and I've got this variety, which is the Mariana, not producing as well as I'd like, but look, it's good for a home garden to get what you can out of your patch. This is today's harvest. It's not overly large, and look, the cucumbers are okay. It's nice to have a few cucumbers in the harvest. I find with the burpless, with the green dragon, it's actually quite a sweet cucumber. It's really nice to eat. The tops are quite bitter, so if you are eating them, make sure you cut the top off. Production wise, look, they are producing well. I mean, not as much as I would like. You can just see a few extra fruits showing up, and they need to be able to stay on top of the disease. At the moment I've been getting a lot of thrip damage, no powdery mildew, but that's a lot of fruit damage that's going on there at the moment. Look, it's an okay plant. Would I plant it again next season? Maybe, because I've got a lot of seeds at the moment, but I won't go out of my way to buy those seeds. Likewise with the Mariana, again, it's a smaller style Lebanese cucumber, nothing special, so I definitely won't be growing that variety again. But you know, that's part of having a veggie garden, really trying to experiment, trying to find the variety that works well in your patch. And I like to try at least 1 or 2 new varieties every season, just so I can learn what works best in my microclimate. In this case, these cucumbers probably aren't going to be right for me. Regardless though, I still need to do a bit of work to this planting to make sure it continues producing. And at the moment, I had a question earlier in some earlier videos about what I do to my vines once they reach the top of the string trellis. And at the moment, you can just see this one here is reaching the top. What I do is actually install a mesh across the top here now and fix it down, and that vine will then grow through the mesh and just run across the top. And what I'll just be using is 50mm mesh, or any mesh that you can find, and I'll be just fixing that right now to the top of this trellis system using cable ties, and then that way I can just pass those vines through the mesh holes. Just finished installing that mesh, and as you can see there, I've just brought the vine up through it, and now as it grows it will start laying over the top of the mesh. Just fixed it down with a few cable ties, and that should be plenty. Look, these cucumbers, if they keep producing for the next month or so, that'd be great. I have started off a second planting of cucumbers. These ones are the ones that I prefer. They've just germinated, and you can see these ones are Craig, and we've just started germinating in this patch planted out last week. These ones hopefully will be start producing just as that first crop goes offline. Like to have a few cucumbers in the garden, so in the kitchen, so if I can get whatever I can get from those plants is great, but I'm not overly stoked by how they're producing, but happy they're there. Continuing on with my harvest this afternoon, and today I'm going to be doing my fortnightly harvest of my parsley patch. Now I grow a lot of parsley. My mum and dad have been asking me to grow more parsley in my backyard, so I'm going to be planting some out later today. But first I want to come through and actually harvest the parsley that I've got growing at the moment. Now in earlier videos I did show you how I planted this out, and I planted it out in this north facing bed, and I planted it out in rows that 20 centimeters apart. I didn't want to have the plants too close together. In our family's experience, when it comes to planting parsley, we find that as you come into spring it always bolts. So the key, what we do here, is that we try to plant it out in early spring, and then you end up having parsley all the way through the season until next year when it bolts again. You just can see it's no evidence of the plants bolting, and you can just see beautiful stems of parsley, growing really, really well. Now I like to harvest my parsley to make sure I don't get any damage on the leaves. And if you can just see that little splotching on the white leaves there, that's it. White flies sucking on the leaves. And look, you can still eat it, but it's just becomes, if it gets too severe, it just becomes quite ugly and we end up throwing those leaf away. So the idea here is to actually make the parsley patch grow really, really fast, add a lot of fertilizer between each cut, and then harvest it quickly enough so that it doesn't get impacted by the pests. So today, this has now been 3 weeks since I harvested it last. I would like to harvest it normally at 2 weeks. It's been 3 weeks. I'm going to harvest this and then freshen up the patch, add some fertilizer, and really encourage it to put another load of leaves out before that harvest in 2 weeks time. And when it comes to harvesting this patch, I will harvest the whole patch, but what I'll do is I will use a knife to gently cut the leaf back, but I will try to endeavor not to cut that growing tip there. Even this leaf here, I find that if you cut that growing tip, you actually kill the plant. So all I want to do is just harvest all the larger leaves. So when it comes to harvesting, again, just using my knife, just trying to cut probably 2 centimeters above. So I don't want to cut the growing tip, and just using my knife, just slowly just cutting those leaves back and just taking off all of those leaves. And I will come through later and actually sort out those leaves once I've harvested, to take out all the weeds and all the rubbish leaves, so that we can then bunch them up. But that's beautiful. You get a little bit of grasses in there, but we'll get rid of those. Now when it comes to varieties of parsley we grow the Italian or continental parsley. I don't grow the curly parsley. It's not something that we use much in our kitchen. And I'll grow these from seeds that my dad will collect from his patches every year. So it's always a fresh batch of seeds that we use, and they have very good germination. Just finished harvesting that patch, and you can just see, just cut it all back down, making sure I kept it just a little bit shy of the growing tip so it can grow up. You can just see I've actually just planted not that many plants, and the more space, I find the more space you give parsley to grow, the bigger the leaves get and the bigger the crop is. So I've been planting these in the rows, and it gives me the chance to go through those rows and remove a lot of those weeds that grow through the plant, between the plants. Really clean it up, keep it as fresh as possible. But before I go inside and start sawing out that parsley, I'm going to give the bed a really good feed now of liquid fertilizer, nitrogen based liquid fertilizer. Look, I use Power Feed only because it's easy to get, but it is a high nitrogen variety. But anything you've got will work well. Full watering can, and for this patch, which is about a meter by about 800, full watering can is perfect. And it's just a really deep soak, and I try to apply this once a week. Really try to get the parsley to grow really, really fast, and I'm trying to hopefully get around whatever's been sap-sucking insects, whether it's fruit, white flies, whatever, or thrips that are damaging the leaves. Now with the harvest, I've taken it indoors and I've actually sorted out the leaves and only keeping the cleanest of the leaves, and I've been bundling them up into bunches, giving them a really good wash, and I've washed them with a salt and vinegar solution to sterilize the leaves. And then what I'll do is I'll sit them in a cup to just let them drip dry, so to get all that surface water off those leaves. And then we store them in the fridge in a plastic bag wrapped around in a paper towel. And the idea there is it'll stay fresh for up to 2 weeks until we start using them. Now these parsley in particular, go to my parents' house, Mum will trim them up and make tabbouleh out of them, and I'm hoping to get some of that in me this week. It's in the garden this afternoon, and I'm continuing on with my spring harvest, and this time now I'm going to be over at my eggplant. Now these eggplants, I staked them about a couple of videos ago, added my fertilizer and healed these plants. They are starting to show a few nice eggplants that finally need to be harvested. I actually might be leaving this one to go. It's a little bit too far, but there are some small nice ones that need to be picked off as per the plants, look, they're looking okay. I believe there's a problem with thrips more than spider mites. If you can probably just see, if I can probably see some thrips in here, but they are causing a lot of problems on my plants, and I'm expecting thrips to become more an issue along with spider mites as it warms up here in Sydney. It's just they come with the humidity and the heat. I'm trying to keep on top of them, but as you can see, I've lost what looks like potentially I've lost 1 or 2 of the plants, but that's part of the fun of growing veggies. I might give that a really good prune back just to clean up all those leaves, give it a really good boost of liquid fertilizer, nitrogen based fertilizer, just to really spruce it up, and hopefully I can make it grow out of that damage. But for the rest of it, I'm going to harvest a few of these eggplants and take them inside and add them to the haul of food I've been harvesting today. Not overly large, but it's a nice start to the season. Don't like to let them get too big, and actually the fact that it's just starting to color a bit like this, maybe a sign it might be just a little bit over. This is my eggplant harvest. Got myself 6 here. Not bad size, looking quite clean. Happy to take them in and use them. As for the rest of the plants, they are starting to show a few more flowers. They do need more fertilizer, so I'm going to be adding more fertilizer again to these plants, but I might be looking at doing a more liquid fertilizer. I'm just anxious that these plants don't seem to be as vigorous as I'd like them to be. It's just been a really bad season for eggplants this year. Just not sure. I might have to play a little bit more with my fertilizer, spend a little bit of time looking after them. But I will be adding some more power feed, just 2 applications of power feed 2 weeks apart. See if I can get them to really respond and put a lot more growth. I'm expecting that they should get, as of last year, pretty much as tall as these posts, so I'm expecting them to grow to a decent height. But moving over to my capsicums, the capsicums are a bit of a different story. My capsicums are actually looking quite good at the moment, even though I had a little bit of issues earlier on with aphids. They're just starting to put on some larger fruit. The variety here is Harley. Turns out I had accidentally planted a jalapeno plant in this patch, but that's okay. The fruit wise, looking beautiful. Really starting to put on some good size, as you can just see right there. These plants are going to be coming really nice. I'll be harvesting these green in about 2 to 3 weeks time. And moving across to the ones adjacent, you can just see the capsicums are starting to get quite big. I'm not going to wait for these ones to go red. I may pick these green to get some in the kitchen. And there's still a lot of flowers showing up, and that looks like they're just responding to the fertilizer that I added. But my Agostinis, the yellow capsicum varieties, are doing a lot better than my red ones. Now I can just show you what the fruit are doing at the moment. You can just see those nice beautiful capsicums just showing up across the plants, and you can see they actually got great size as well, and these aren't too far off being full size for green. Probably another 2 weeks as well. These seem to be doing a little bit better. I think it's because they're sitting in just a little bit of afternoon shade with the lemon tree and the avocado, just put in that little bit of dapple light through at the crucial times of the day when it's too hot. One thing I do want to show you though is the damage that thrips and other sap-sucking insects can do. And you can just see this plant, these leaves here had just a bit wrinkled and damaged like that. That's a sign of sap-sucking insects, and I'm putting it down to thrips, not spider mites. But another thing I can tell that they've been sap-sucking insects, you can see this, if you can read that webbing around the capsicum, that's from sap-sucking insects. In my case, I think it's thrips, and it's very similar. This damage is very similar to what you get on tomatoes and on eggplant. That kind of webbing that you see on those fruits is a sign of either spider mites or thrips. In my case, I'm putting it down to thrips. I have seen thrips around on my plants, so I'm trying to control them with pyrethrum, upping up the sprays, just stay on top of them, because it is knocking around a lot of my plants, especially this one's been knocked around. And if I look over here at my jalapenos, this one as well has been absolutely devastated by it. Still got a lot of good fruit, as you can see there, but it's been smashed, whereas the plant next to it seems to be okay. And these fruits are starting to get a nice little size to them as well. And even the capsicum here at the end is these two capsicums just starting to show the first signs of damage. You can just see those leaves bubbling and blistering on the top and here as well. So it's really, the issues that you always have in gardening in the warmer times of the year. You always end up having a lot more pest pressure to deal with, and it's just a bit of a constant heartache trying to make sure that your plants are thriving and are doing their best. But I guess you take a few days off to spend time with the family or get busy at work, and then take your eye off on the garden, and it sort of just goes a bit funny. But I'm going to continue trying to nurse these plants back to health and hopefully get a decent crop out of them. And before I wrap this video, just a quick update on my corn patch. I thought this week was going to be the week when I would be harvesting corn. Looks like I'm still a week away from harvest. I've just done a quick check on one of the corn ears. You can just pull back the corn kernel, and you can just see that still the corn is still quite young still, so it still needs at least another 5-6 days. And what I'll do is just wrap it up like that, and it will be absolutely fine. Really anxious to get corn because really excited about how great they are to eat. And I've been hearing, thank you for everyone that's been making comments about their corn progression. A lot of people are already starting to harvest corn who have been planting at the same schedule as I have. So maybe just in my climate here, they may have just taken a few more weeks to grow. But I'm looking forward to harvesting these to clear this space. The ones further across now, I mean, these ones are probably another 2 weeks away rather than a week away. And these guys are definitely 1 more week to go before I start harvesting. And with my second planting of corn, they've actually just shot up so much over the last 2 weeks. And these are going to need fertilizer, and they're going to need healing. In my context, I'll be adding sulfate of ammonia to these plants, and I just will drill a little trench just to the side of these plants and give them that real big boost of nitrogen to really help them grow. And I will start healing these plants because, as you can see, the wind is really starting to knock these seedlings around. And for my third planting of sweet corn, I received my new seeds on the weekend. I went and brought another round of Sentinel sweet corn seeds, hoping that they will germinate. This is 80 seeds here at the moment, and I've got a number of good spots I want to plant out this sweet corn. I'm looking at planting in the location of my bush beans, the first planting, clear that whole bed out, plant myself about 6 rows of sweet corn there. Plus, along with the sweet corn that I was going to plant in where the first round of sweet corn is, I'm going to plant 20 plants there as well. So hopefully they all germinate and I'll be able to plant them out and hopefully have another flush of a glut of sweet corn in about 8 to 10 weeks time. Thank you very much everyone for joining me in this video. I really appreciate all the support. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment on my video or reach out to me via a DM on my socials, TikTok and Instagram, or send me an email in the description notes. Thank you again for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.